this is a crucial winter for Putin as well, because if he cannot provide a very significant and clear success in this winter campaign and is not able to stabilize his economy and overcome the sanctions, he might be losing support within his society and even in autocracy like Russia. Look, it is a very challenging situation. It's been reported that every single big power station has been damaged by Russian missile attacks. That means that there's a huge strain on the electricity grid in Ukraine, lacking about 30% of the capacity necessary to sustain normal life. Washington means that the whole country has been experiencing blackouts. And even with all the reparation going on, round the clock, that means the rationing of the electricity and very, very stringent conditions for everyone in the country. And remember that electricity is not only lighting your house, but it also means that if you don't have it, you don't have heating, you might not have water, you might not have other services that are essential to survive a cold winter. So I think it's the challenge for the whole of the country and for everyone to survive this winter and show the resilience necessary to defeat Russia in this war.
NATO's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg yesterday was talking about Russia using winter as a weapon of war. And the point about these attacks on the power infrastructure, of course, it does put many people, particularly the elderly, the vulnerable and so on, at real risk.
Well, exactly. I mean, the main point of this tax is to bring down the morale of Ukrainians and force them into, accepting some sort of armistice, allowing the Russians to regroup their forces and regain their power. This has not happened so far. Ukrainians again have shown a quite amazing resilience. There has been ways and means to survive in the situation where there is no electricity or heating. There has been heating points established throughout the whole country. People are helping each other in the way that are possible. People are, purchasing generators to generate electricity necessary for, small things like charging the phone or being able to read the news or other things. So I think that while Kremlin hopes that Ukrainians will turn the rage against their own government, what is happening is that Ukrainians are more and more angry with the Russians who are inflicting this unnecessary damage on the civilian population.
And we've seen NATO foreign ministers pledging more support for Ukraine at their meeting in Bucharest. Are you getting the supplies, the equipment that you need from the West?
I think this winter is going to be also a challenge for NATO unity in the face of Russian aggression. While we have received the military and economic assistance necessary, I think there's much more that is necessary to have a clear defeat of Russia in this war, something that the NATO countries could have provided already. We're talking about the defensive weapons that would help protect Ukrainian cities and infrastructure from the missile attacks. We're talking about more of assault weapons, heavy weaponry that would allow Ukraine to regain the territory. And these are the questions that the NATO countries are still discussing. And also, don't forget the economic consequences of this war that are felt by everyone. So hopefully the NATO countries will remain united in support of Ukraine and countering Russia and will be more boldly providing Ukraine with a weapon that is necessary to regain its territory and restore our territorial integrity and sovereignty.
It's very difficult, of course, to gauge what is going on in Russia. But there is a report in the Times newspaper tonight talking about how a leaked Kremlin poll shows that Russians are increasingly opposed to the war. Just 25%, according to this, back the military action against your country. And we've seen reports elsewhere of Russian soldiers trying to surrender to the Ukrainian authorities. Is that something that is really going on? And I mean, what happens to Russian soldiers who perhaps have been sent to the front lines but really don't want to fight for the Russians?
We clearly see the sinking morale of the Russian troops, especially those who were just mobilized in Russia, the people who have no proper military training, who did not receive the proper military equipment, who are not equipped to fight in the winter time. We also see the decreasing support of this war in the Russian society overall. And remember, the hardest sanctions are just gonna kick in this December, the sanctions on oil, and then on oil products next spring. So that is already straining the Russian budget, making it, the deficit grows. So this is a crucial winter for Putin as well, because if he cannot provide a very significant and clear success in this winter campaign and is not able to stabilize his economy and overcome the sanctions, he might be losing support within his society. And even in autocracy like Russia, this matters because at some point he might not have enough money to pay for his police forces and people depending on the Russian budgets, those who are his main support base in Russia. So we will be following that quite closely. And frankly speaking, I think this is the crucial time for all of us because the one who has more money, more support, and more resilience will survive this winter. Hopefully, with the support of NATO allies, this is going to be Ukraine, and the Russian society will be just pretty much tired of fighting this unnecessary war.
Do you think, though, nonetheless, that as we do head into the winter, as temperatures fall, as the power cuts continue, that there will be many more Ukrainians who will feel that they need to leave the country, perhaps adding to those hundreds of thousands who've already had to flee Ukraine?
This might happen. It's quite hard to predict what the actual outflow of Ukraine is going to be. For now, we have not seen a significant number of Ukrainians live in the country. Those who could and were willing to do that has done this earlier. Those who stayed chose to adapt to the circumstances, no matter how harsh they are. Of course, let's see how the situation unfolds within the winter. It's very hard to predict. The temperature in Ukraine can go down to minus 15, sometimes minus 20 degrees. If there's continuously no heating available, then these circumstances become unbearable. And we should be prepared for the scenario when many Ukrainians will have to at least temporarily leave the country.
We're seeing reports of what appears to be a letter bomb at the Ukrainian embassy in Madrid, in Spain. What can you tell us about that?
Well, there's not much information available to really judge who or why did that. No one took responsibility for this terrorist attack. This is clearly a way of intimidating Ukrainians abroad, showing them that Russia can follow them wherever they are. This failed actually because this bomb failed to cause significant damage. But it's a warning to all of us that Russia has long hands and it can, do the terrorist attacks not only in Ukraine but all over Europe. And I mean, Russia has done this before. We remember the poisoning and murdering of the Russian dissidents and former KGB agents. Now they're using their network to attack Ukraine. So I think that also just reminds us that we have to be vigilant that Russia still has capabilities to attack civilians or embassies or any other institution that it seems important, even in European countries.